Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah Harihi Om Dhyayamo Dhavalavagunthanavatim Tejomayim Naishtikim Snigdhapangavilokinim Bhagavatim Mandasmitashrimukhim Vatsalyamritavarshiniim Sumadhuram Sankirtanalapinim Shyamangim Madhusiktasuktim Amritanandatmikam Ishwarim Om Amriteshwaryai Namah Om Amriteshwaryai Namah Om Amriteshwaryai Namah Om Amriteshwaryai Namah. Let us continue our discussion on Bhaja Govindam. So far, we have covered 26 names, and today we'll look at the 27th, the 26 verses, and today we'll look at the 27th verse. As always, let us quickly go over the gist of every verse that we have discussed till now. So starting with the first verse about the complications that we have created about life, all the grammatical rules and technicalities that we have created, try to go beyond and try to develop the attitude of humility through devotion. The second verse is about controlling our tendency to accumulate more and more wealth and focus on righteousness, dharma. The third verse was about unnecessary importance that we give to the physical appearance. Try to go beyond that. Fourth verse was about how life is so unpredictable. Better we are prepared, better we would fare in life. The fifth one was about how we would have following, we would have people around us as long as we have wealth, as long as we have abilities. And once that depletes, people also fade out of our life. The sixth one was about how as long as there is life in this body, people consider us. Then it is natural that people will slowly start forgetting us. The seventh one, how in every stage of our life, childhood, being youth, being old, we are obsessed with so many different things. Rather, we could have invested our faculty in focusing on the eternal, which we always forget in every phase of our life. It's a reminder for us. The eighth verse was about, again talking about relationship, but most importantly, raising the question, who am I? That's where our journey begins of our spiritual growth. The ninth verse, now that we have begun or set out on the journey, on the spiritual quest, we begin with right company. Through right company, we overcome attachments, and through that, we overcome delusion, being delusioned, and thus the truth would be revealed to us. So that's the path we need to take. The 10th verse was about how we hold so many different things significant in various phases of life. Eventually, they become insignificant. So it would be so nice if we could understand how impermanent the significance is and deal with things with that understanding. We would be much more matured in dealing with things thereby. The 11th verse, how now we know they are impermanent in nature, then what's the point taking pride in the impermanent things that we have, be it wealth, be it people, be it the abilities and youthfulness, all of that. 12th verse is about how life throws at us experiences dual in nature. Some are pleasant, some are unpleasant. So less that we are carried away by the emotions of each of these kinds of experiences, better we would be in life. 13th verse was about how good company, especially the company of a Sadguru, is the one that takes us across the vicious cycle, the unending ocean of transmigration, the unending ocean of samsara, of life. The 14th verse is about, as we try to grow spiritually, let us not try to make it a show off. We are not focused on the outward growth, how we wear, how we artificially conduct ourselves. Rather, the growth has to happen within, and then that organically reflects outward. So that's the path we need to take. The 15th and the 16th verses were pointing out to desires, how tightly we hold on to desires. We lose our abilities, we lose people, we lose wealth, we lose youthfulness, but still we hold on to desires as tightly as we could. So it's a reminder, 15th and 16th verses. 17th verse is about rituals and austerities, how important they are initially for us as we try to grow spiritually, but eventually we should not hold on to those as well. We need to go beyond, take the principles that they stand for and go beyond. The 18th verse is about dispassion. One who exercises dispassion, there is no way that the person could in any situation be unhappy or be sad or be bogged down, would ever be joyful, will ever rejoice. The 19th verse is about how when one focuses one's mind onto the divine, in any condition, any situation that the person is, would ever rejoice, and only rejoice. So where our mind is focused on is most important than where we are. The 20th verse was about how we need to imbibe the spiritual principles, that various things, be it scriptural texts like Bhagavad Gita, be it what Mother Nature teaches us, like River Ganges, River Ganga, or divine forms and their essences teach us. We need to imbibe the principles that they stand for. The 21st verse is reminding us how we are stuck in the vicious cycle of birth and death, birth and death. Why? Because of our attachments, our possessiveness over the things that we desire. More and more we desire, more and more we are stuck. We need to be born again to quench our desires. So let go of it, get out of the vicious cycle. That's the only way out. 22nd verse was about a true yogi. A true yogi is one who takes the least, gives the most back to the world. And such people, of course, it's very difficult to comprehend them because they are unlike the so-called civilized way of life that we have defined, the complicated civilized way of life. 23rd verse, the question again, 23rd, 24th, 25 and 26 it revolves around the question, who am I? And we are trying to understand who am I not. So starting with relationships, positions that we have, am I defined through them is what we need to understand, and we are not. And then 24 and 25 were trying to point out to us that we should realize the oneness in everything and how we maintain an equipoised mind, seeing the divine in everyone and everything. And the 26th verse stresses upon letting go of negativities like anger, lust, greed, etc. Try to overcome that. That way we can see the self, the true self that is in me, in everyone. The less we see of that, more in hellish situations that we are. We want to be in heaven, see the self in everything. Automatically we don't need to go to heaven. Heaven will be right where we are, like the example of Amma that we see. So these were the verses we have discussed so far. And today we'll discuss the 27th verse. The 27th verse is just giving practical pointers on sadhana, on spiritual practice. More specifically, external spiritual practice. So the 27th verse goes as Geyam Gita Nama Sahasram Dhyeyam Shripatim Rupamajasram Neyam Sajjana Sange Chittam Deyam Dina Janayacha Vittam. So let's, as always, look into the verse word by word, first looking into the pronunciation and then move on to the meaning and then discuss about the verse. So please respond after me twice after I pronounce each of the terms, each of the words. Geyam, Geyam, Geyam. Gita, Gita, Gita. Nama, Nama, Nama. First A has a bar over it, second A doesn't have a bar over it. Nama. That's why it is Nama. If none of the A's had a bar, it would be Nama. If both the A's had a bar, it would have been Nama. But here it's Nama. And then next term is Sahasram. 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 Geyam, Gita, Nama, Sahasram. The next line, Dhyeyam. It is DH, so it is Dh. And DHYE, Dh, Ye, Dhye, Dhye, Dhyeyam, Dhyeyam, Dhyeyam. If you are not able to mix the Y after the DH, you can just, for convenience, just pronounce it as Dhyeyam, which is wrong. But if you're finding it too difficult to have Dhya, Dhya, Dhyeyam, you can just do Dhyeyam. Dhyeyam, Shripati, Shripati. S with the mark on the top. So flat tongue, Sh, Shripati, Shripati, Shripati. Rupam, Rupam, Rupam. Ajasram, Ajasram, Ajasram. Dhyeyam, Shripati, Rupam, Ajasram. Some versions they also do Dhyeyam, Shripatim, Rupam, Ajasram, which is fine because both of them, we are talking about Shripati, the divine's form. Shripati Rupam means it ends with a right? Sound is the second row on the table, if you remember that we have discussed it many months ago now. The second row on the table with respect to is what the second row on the table represents. So if you say Shripatim Rupam Ajasram, again the meaning would be with respect to the divine, with respect to the form of the divine. Meditate on that. We'll anyway get to the meaning. So either way is fine. Third line, Neyam, 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 Sajjana. There are two J's. So had it been just one J, it would be Sajjana. There are two J's, so it is Sajjana, Sajjana, Sajjana. So there are two J's. So first J is without a vowel. So it is J. And then there is a J with a vowel, A. So that is Ja. So it is J and Ja. So together it would become Ja. Ja. So Sajjana. Sange. 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 Chittam. Again the same principle here. Two T's. Had it been just Chittam, it would be Chitam. Because there are two T's, it is Chittam. A half T, and ta, ta. So ta, Chittam, Chittam, Chittam. Neyam Sajjana Sange Chittam. Deyam, Deyam, Deyam. Deena, Deena, Deena. Janaya, Janaya, Janaya. Cha, cha, cha. Vittam. Again T, T. So Vittam, Vittam, Vittam. Deyam, Deena, Janaya cha, Vittam. So the 27th verse goes as Geyam, Gita, Nama, Sahasram. Dhyeyam, Shripati, Rupam, Ajasram. Neyam, Sajjana, Sange Chittam. Deyam Dina Janayacha Vittam. So we'll do it in tune. If you're familiar, please join me the first time itself. Else, join me the second time. We'll do it twice. Geyam Gita Nama Sahasram Dhyeyam Shripati Rupamajasram Neyam Sajjana Sange Chittam Deyam Dina Janaya Chavittam. Once more. Geyam Gita Nama Sahasram Dhyeyam Shripati Rupamajasram Neyam Sajjana Sange Chittam Deyam Dina Janaya Chavittam. Geyam, Geyam, to sing the glory of, or to praise. Geyam, to sing, to chant, to praise, or to remind ourselves of the glory of. Geyam, Geyam what? Gita. Gita. Gita literally translates to a song or a poem, something that is metered in the way it exists, a metered prose. So, Geyam Gita and Nama Sahasram. Sahasra translates to 1,000. Nama translates to name. So, Sahasra Nama or Nama Sahasra. So, chant the Gita and the 1,000 names is what the first line is trying to convey to us. Dhyeyam Shripati Rupamajasram. Dhyeyam, to meditate upon, to be focused on, to be one pointed upon. Dhyeyam. We say Dhyayamo Dhavalava Gunthanavatim. Dhyaya, Dhyayama or Dhyayami. I meditate or we meditate. So Dhyeyam, one should meditate. Dhyeyam Shripati Rupam. Shripati, Shripati technically translates or refers to Lord Vishnu. But if you just look at the term literally, Shri, auspiciousness. Pati, the Lord. So Shripati, the Lord of auspiciousness, the divine one that controls, that creates, that sustains, and that removes everything in the creation which is auspicious in nature. Shripati, the divine that makes everything happen, that which is auspicious. Shripati, Rupam, form. Shripati Rupam, on the form of the divine. Ajasram, ever, all the time. So ever be focused, ever be one pointed, ever meditate on the form of the Supreme. The Supreme, the Divine, the Lord of auspiciousness. Neyam, Neyam, guide or to direct. Neyam what? Chittam. Neyam, your mind. Guide your mind or direct your mind. Direct your mind to what? Sajjana Sangha. Sajjana, Jana, people. Sat, Jana, people with the right attitude. People who are focused on the truth. Sajjana, Sangha, gathering, company. So, direct your mind to the company of people who are focused on the truth. People who are focused, people who have positive thoughts or mindset to share. Focus your mind to their company. Sajjana Sange Chittam. Deyam, give unconditionally. Deyam, Dina Jana, Dina Janaya, Janaya to them. So Deyam, give Dina Jana, Jana, people again. Dina, one who is downtrodden, one who is in need, one who is suffering. Dina Janaya, to such people. Cha, and Vittam, wealth. So give your wealth to those who are in need. So these are the points that the verse is trying to convey to us. We could summarize these as, to summarize these points, we could summarize these points as Bahiranga sadhana. There are two types of sadhanas: Antaranga sadhana, Bahiranga sadhana. Anga, body; Antaranga, within ourselves, within the body. Bahiranga, that is that which is physical, which is outwardly. Sadhana, spiritual practice. So this is Bahiranga sadhana, the outwardly spiritual practices. So as part of that, what are the things that are told to us? Chant the Gita and the 1,000 names. And let it not be just mechanical chanting. When we say chant the Gita, it should also be with the attitude of imbibing the teachings of the Gita, imbibing the meanings of the 1,000 names, not just mechanically chanting them. Imbibe the meaning, the teachings, the principles, and then chant the Gita and the 1,000 names. And then always be in the state of experiencing the divine in everything. Wherever I see, I should see the divine. And that's what we've been discussing 24, 25, and 26th verses, right? See the divine in everything. And that's the example Amma sets. When Amma is asked, how are you able to give darshan for so long, for 15, 16 hours every day of your life, without attending to your basic needs, even to nature's call? Amma says, I can't help but I see my own self in everyone. Then there is no trouble, there is no suffering, there is no effort there. So see the divine or experience the divine in everything and everyone around us. Third one, ever be in good company. Always keep our mind in good company. And being in a good company is different from keeping our mind in good company. We'll anyway discuss about it further. And the fourth one, give without any hesitation to those in need. Four things that are part of Bahiranga sadhana. So to start with, first, Geyam Gita Nama Sahasram. Chant the Gita and chant the 1,000 names. When we say Gita, of course, one thing that would come in our mind is Bhagavad Gita. But Gita, as I mentioned, just basically means a metered prose, a song, something that is in a form of poem. There are different forms of Gita, or different kinds of Gita. There are actually scores or dozens of Gitas, 50, 60 Gitas that we could see. Basically, they are conversation between two individuals discussing about a spiritual principle. And the popular ones are like Bhagavad Gita, which we are all aware of. There is Ashtavakra Gita, there is Avadhuta Gita, there is Guru Gita. Guru Gita we have discussed long time back. So Guru Gita is a conversation between Lord Shiva and Parvati. It is presented as a conversation between sage Shuka with other sages, and he is conveying to them the conversation between Shiva and Parvati about the significance of Guru, about the significance of a spiritual master and the principles that the spiritual master represents, the ultimate state. There is Ashtavakra Gita. Ashtavakra Gita is more about Advaitic principles. It's a conversation between sage Ashtavakra and King Janaka. There is Avadhuta Gita. Avadhuta Gita is the conversation between Lord Kartikeya, the second son of Lord Shiva and Parvati, and the Avadhuta Gita is the conversation between Kartikeya and Dattatreya, sage Dattatreya. Dattatreya is considered to be an incarnation of Lord Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma in one body. And we have discussed about it in one of these scriptural discussions that we had, one of the sessions. And that is also about being in that ultimate state, being an avadhuta, being a realized being. And then Bhagavad Gita, of course, what we have discussed. We discussed the chapter 2 of, and maybe we'll be discussing the other chapters eventually. Is a conversation between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. It is about the ultimate principle of the self. It's the journey of us in search of our true self. And that could be through the path of devotion, could be through the path of selfless actions, could be through the path of knowledge, self-inquiry. And Bhagavad Gita is quite a good abstract of the Vedic teachings. And Bhagavad Gita is interpreted in Advaitic, dualistic, non-dualistic or Dvaitic, dualistic principles too. It can be interpreted both the ways, or in other forms like Vishishta Advaita, Shuddha Advaita, etc. So I just wanted to impress upon you, when you say Gita, it could be any of these, and all these are conversations in poetic form that convey to us through the conversation about high spiritual principles, most of them the ultimate spiritual principles. So Geyam Gita, try to chant them at the same time. More importantly, try to imbibe the teachings that they are trying to convey to us. We've discussed about the Bhagavad Gita, how even recently we discussed the 20th verse, that it goes as Bhagavad Gita Kinchitadhita. Try to imbibe at least a little of the essence that Bhagavad Gita is trying to stand for, that it is conveying to us. Even that would make a big change in our life. The line symbolizes that we should be knowledgeable of the nature of life, the nature of world, every moment of our life. If we are aware of the principles, the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, we would be all the more matured, we will be all the more, all the more, what's the synonym of matured? To be all the more, I think advanced, okay. Anyway, matured, I think it conveys. We would have a better attitude towards every situation of our life. I'm sure you would have experienced this too. I experience it a lot. A lot of people come and discuss with me about the problems in their life. And when we have problems in our life, we tend to become all the more spiritual, right? We tend to think more spiritually. Oh, this is the way life is. But the problems are gone, we forget about them. And again, we go back to our mundane way of living life. But the problem is, when we are trying to be spiritual, it is probably the wrong time to being spiritual, because our mind is very closed, is obsessed with the problem that we are dealing with, or it is overwhelmed with the problem that we are dealing with. So probably it's not the best time to think spiritually, because we will have a skewed way of looking at it when we have a problem and we are trying to look at the scriptures through that problem. So the point here is, when we are trying to imbibe the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, do it when we have an open mind. Very important. Only then would we be able to ingest the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. And that way we would be able to apply it properly when we are in unpleasant situation, and we would be able to apply it properly when we are in a pleasant situation too. The whole Bhagavad Gita, when we were discussing the chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, how the teaching of Bhagavad Gita, the conversation of Bhagavad Gita happens right in the middle of the battlefield. Both the Pandavas and Kauravas are ready to start the war, and that's when Lord Krishna takes the chariot of Arjuna right in the middle of the two armies, two mighty armies, thousands of people lined up to start the war. And the teaching happens right in the middle. One side we have dharma, the righteous people. Now the other side we have adharma, the unrighteous people. And Bhagavad Gita happens right in the middle. It's symbolic of how we should imbibe the teachings, not being on either side, right in the middle, and then imbibe. That's when we will be completely open to imbibing or ingesting the teachings of any scripture that we are looking into, trying to understand. When we are very happy, we don't have time to think about spiritual principles. And when we are too sad, we are overwhelmed with our emotion to ingest the spiritual principles. So when is the good time to do it? When we are neither in any of these extremes. You may have heard me give this example of a little boy who got a gift from his dad. He got the gift of a flying drone, a remote controlled drone that he could fly. He always dreamt of having one. He always desired to have one. And finally, one day, the dad gets him one. And he's so excited looking at the learning that he got a drone. He rips open the package and gets the drone out, immediately turns on the drone, turns on the remote control and starts flying the drone. He's so happy. And the father tells him, make sure you know how to fly the drone, because it should not go out of control. Make sure you read the user manual first. But he has no time to do that because he's so excited. He says, I know how to fly a drone. I have read so much about it. I have watched so many videos. It's so obvious. It's very simple. Look at this. I'm able to fly it. And the drone goes up in the sky. And he's very happy, very excited. And as he mentioned, he knew how to do it. But then, after about 15-20 minutes of flying it, he realizes the drone is very far away and the drone has run out of battery, which he didn't know, that drones held battery only for 15-20 minutes or 30 minutes to the max. And now he's frantically trying to get the drone back onto the ground before it crashes, because it would lose connection from the remote control. And he's trying to do things. That very moment, he quickly takes the user manual and tries to flip through the pages to see, how do I manage crisis? If this happens, how do I land the drone safely? And in that haste, he's not able to find what he wants to find, and he just goes through the page so quickly. He tears the user manual. In that process, he's all worked up, and finally he loses control. He's not able to find a solution. He loses control, and the drone crash lands, and he loses his drone. So that is his situation I was trying to give. Initially, when he had the drone, he was extremely excited. And when we are excited, we have no time to go through the user manual. The scriptures are like the user manual that point to us what are the do's and the don'ts. What is the right way of doing things, wrong way of not doing things. And we are too excited to go through it. We say, it's fine. I'll look at it when I need it. But when we need it, when we are in a difficult situation, we are so overwhelmed by the emotion of that situation that we will not have presence of mind to see what is written there. And we will, in that process, even destroy the whole manual or what it is trying to teach us. We will, the teachings can get all the more skewed in that process. So, when is the best time to do it? When we are calm. We are neither too excited nor too bogged down. That's when try to understand and imbibe the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, so that it automatically comes, they automatically surface when we need it in bad or good situations. So, Geyam Gita, not just chanting them, imbibe the teachings. And when do we imbibe the teachings? Whenever we have time, not wait till the last moment during the crisis situation to imbibe those teachings. And Nama Sahasram, Sahasranama, the 1,000 names. And when we say 1,000 names, the thing that would come to us, the term that would come to us is Lalita Sahasranama, the 1,000 names of the Divine Mother. But again, like the Gita, there are many 1,000 names. There are 1,000 names dedicated to various deities, various forms in the Indian tradition in Sanatana Dharma. Of course, the two popular ones are the Lalita Sahasranama, the 1,000 names of the Divine Mother, and Vishnu Sahasranama, the 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu, the sustainer of the creation. Again, when you say chant the 1,000 names, it's not just mechanically chanting the 1,000 names, rather try to imbibe the teachings of the essence or the principle behind each of the names. And that's what we did when we discussed the 1,000 names. We took almost 6 years to go over, of course with the gaps, but we went through every name and tried to understand the significance of every name. It would be best if we could imbibe them, understand them when we chant the 1,000 names. And like in the Archana book, we discussed that in the very last session of the 1,000 names, how there is an Amma saying that is mentioned in most of the Archana books in the very back of the book, the back cover of the book. It says, Amma says, Divine Mother will always protect those who chant the Lalita Sahasranama with devotion every day. They will never face shortage of food and basic necessities and will gain spiritual growth. It's an assurance that Amma gives us. Amma says, of course, there is a catch here. It says, those who chant the Lalita Sahasranama with devotion every day. So devotion should be in double quotes. So just mechanically chanting it is not good enough. Devotionally chanting it. When you say devotion, being dedicated to it, imbibing the teachings and trying to understand. For such people, the basic necessities would always be met. Divine grace would ever envelop us, would ever protect us. And even just literally looking at it, if we chant the 1,000 names every day, 1,000 names is not a small number. A lot of names to chant. If you do it on a regular basis, definitely it is going to teach us a lot of patience. It is going to teach us concentration. It is going to teach us, or it is going to imbibe within us, inculcate us with peace of mind in spite of sitting in one place, not getting fidgety, right? So through that practice, even in literal sense, even in practical sense, it is teaching us all these, or inculcating in us all these qualities. And if we have these qualities, if we have patience, if we have one-pointedness, if we have peace of mind, how can we ever have problems in terms of shortage of food or shortage of basic necessities? Like we discussed in one of the verses, if we have our mind focused on the divine, whatever situation we are in, we'll ever rejoice and only rejoice. And the 19th verse, I guess, was about how when we have the right attitude, how can we ever be sad, right? So even literally looking at it, if we do chant the 1,000 names on a regular basis, it is inculcating in us the right qualities that would ever keep us satisfied, ever keep us content. So, Geyam Gita Nama Sahasram. Chant the Gita and the 1,000 names and imbibe their teachings. The second one, Dhyayam Shri Pati Rupa Majasram. Ever meditate, ever be focused on the divine. Always meditate on the divine. As I mentioned, Shri Pati, Shri, auspiciousness. Pati, the Lord of auspiciousness. One who makes everything auspicious. One who creates, one who sustains, and one who dissolves everything around us which is auspicious. So ever remain meditating on the form. It doesn't mean that we sit down with our eyes closed 24/7. When you say meditate, sitting with our eyes closed with cross-legged is just one form of meditation. Rather, it's the starting point. It is like going to the gym. Staying fit doesn't always mean go to the gym. Going to the gym is a starting point. It teaches us, or it gets us started on to maintaining a good physique, maintaining a healthy body. Doesn't mean that we need to go to gym be in the gym 24/7. Eventually we go over that, we get over that, and we maintain a good physique, even otherwise, if we become regular in the practices that we do as part of what we do in gym. Similarly, sitting down with our eyes closed is the gym for our mind. And it doesn't mean we have to always sit down with our eyes closed to keep our mind strong. Rather, we at one point of time will overgrow that. We get over that. So when we say ever meditate on the divine, ever be focused on the divine, it basically means think of the divine, relate anything and everything that we deal with the divine as much as possible. See the divine or relate it to the divine as much as we can. Like Amma's example, how when she was little, she was so absorbed in the thoughts of Lord Krishna that everything she did, in Amma's own words, Amma says, it would only remind her of Lord Krishna. Amma had to drop out of school 5th grade when she was in the 5th grade. And because Amma's biological mother had physical ailment, because of which all the household chores fell on Amma, because of which she had to pull out of school. And Amma had to take care of cleaning the house, cooking for everyone, preparing the clothes and everything for her siblings, her father, all the family members, taking care of the cattle, the cows, cleaning the house, fetching water from the place where water was available, fetching water for the household needs, also for the cattle, and then going around getting food, leftovers from other houses for feeding the cattle. So Amma had to do all these. To think about a 9-year-old doing that definitely sounds insane. But Amma just could do it so easily because Amma always thought whatever she did, she's doing it for Krishna. If she cleaned the house, she always thought she's cleaning it because Lord Krishna is going to arrive. Whenever she's washing the clothes, she always thought she's washing Lord Krishna's clothes. Whenever she cooked food, she thought she's cooking for Lord Krishna. Whenever she brought food, the food waste, the leftovers from other houses for the cows, she always thought she's feeding the cows of Vrindavan. And Lord Krishna would play with these cows. So anything that she did and everything that she did, she related it to Lord Krishna. That way, she ever remained absorbed in the thoughts of Lord Krishna. So when you say meditate on the divine, it's to feel the divine in everything that we do, feel the divine in everyone that we deal with. Simple things that we could also do. If we could relate things to Amma, when we go to the grocery store, if we could just behold the thought that I am buying things for Amma, I guess we will be buying more healthy and meaningful things. And think of showing the receipt to Amma after you come back home. I think our purchase would be much more healthy, much more contained, much more meaningful. Or when we go for a drive, if we think that Amma is seated in the car, the way we drive is going to be much different. Right? We would stop at every stop sign. None of the stop signs would go unnoticed. We would definitely not try to floor the gas pedal when we see the light turn from green to yellow. Rather, we'll think of stopping, which we are supposed to do when we see the yellow light. So when we relate our day-to-day things with Amma or day-to-day things with your beloved deity, whoever be the form, automatically that becomes a sadhana. So when we relate to the divine in everything that we deal with, it becomes a sadhana. It becomes meditation because we'll automatically exercise more concentration and one-pointedness there. So chant the 1,000 names, the Gita, and imbibe their teachings. 2, ever keep the mind focused on the divine. The third one, it says, Neyam Chittam Sajjana Sange. Neyam Sajjana Sange Chittam. Guide or direct the mind to where? To good company. To the company of people who are constructive in nature, are positive in nature. That will mold our mind in a positive way too. I once asked Amma when I was little, we used to get chance to discuss things with Amma, not as much as we see during the webcast now. The children in Amritapuri get chance to discuss things with Amma so much more than we used to. But once I got an opportunity to, we were all around Amma, and I got this opportunity to ask Amma. I asked Amma, you say two things. One you say is, look for the goodness in everyone. So look at the good in everyone. And two, you say, as children used to advise us, avoid bad company. So if you are looking at the goodness in everyone, how can we consider anything bad company? Both are contradicting statements. So how do we make it possible? So Amma's response was, never reject anyone when you say avoid bad company. When you say bad company, it doesn't mean the individual, it means the company. So never reject anyone, because everyone has goodness in them. Like the example Amma gives always, even a broken clock shows the right time at least twice every day. So never reject anything or anyone considering them bad, but avoid their company when their conduct is not good. So don't say he's a bad person, I'll not talk to him or her. Rather, I'll always love them, I'll always accept them the way they are, but when their deeds are such that they are not righteous, I'll avoid their company. That's all what we need to follow, is what the advice Amma gave. For example, I may have a friend who is very good at heart, always very helpful, always very understanding, always very patient with me. But the friend may have the habit of drinking every Friday. So that doesn't mean I would say the person is bad, he is evil. I'll not even look at him or her. Rather, I'll accept the person the way the person is, and I'll always respect the person the way he or she is. But when he goes for drinking, I'll avoid his company. That's all what it means when you say avoid bad company. Or be in good company. I'll always be around him whenever he is helpful to others. I'll always be around him when he is doing some project. I'll always be around him when he's doing something good, something constructive. So when you say lead the mind to a good company, it basically means lead the mind to situations where positive thoughts, positive actions, positive things are shared amongst people. And again, it says lead your mind. Just physically being there is not good enough. And I could be here right now, or any one of you could be right here as part of the scriptural discussion, but at the same time you may be thinking of someone else, telling that guy is such an evil person, I hate that person. Then there's no point being in the scriptural discussion, right? It's like the example that Amma gives, the story of two women, neighbors. And one of the women, out of compulsion, had to take into prostitution. And the neighbor woman was a preacher. And she always went out preaching about all these scriptural texts, etc. And when both of them died, the story goes wherein the preacher goes to hell and the other woman goes to heaven. And the preacher protests, telling, how is that possible? All my life I preached and you are taking me to hell, and this neighbor of mine who took to prostitution, you are taking her to heaven. How is that even justifiable? And God, as per the story, explains to her, telling, you were always preaching, but your mind was always on the woman and her deeds. Whereas your neighbor, though because of the compulsion in life which took her to prostitution, though she was in a wrong place, but her mind was always with you, thinking about the teachings that you preached. So her mind was always in satsanga, whereas your mind was always in dussanga. Your mind was always in bad company. Her mind was always in good company. So where we are physically, of course, has a significance, but where our mind is all the more important. So we should. That's why this line in the verse, I guess, says, direct your mind to good company, rather than saying be in good company. Being good company is one thing. Being in good company, our mind could still be in bad company. Rather, keep our mind in good company is what this verse says. So, 1,000 names, Gita, chanting and imbibing. 2, ever remaining focused on the divine, or feel the divine and all, experience the divine, or relate everything that we do to the divine. And 3, ever keep our mind or direct our mind to good company. And 4th, give. Deyam, Dina Janaya cha vittam. Deyam, give your wealth to those who are downtrodden, who are in need. Richness, when you say give your wealth, talking about richness, when you say wealth, even the wealth of a person is calculated, the monetary thing, the financial wealth of a person is calculated based on how much we give, right? How do they decide what is the net value of a person? Based on how much tax we pay. That's probably one of the main ways people gauge how rich one person is. So even there, giving is more important. Giving is what decides how rich a person is. So to give is very important. The more we give, the richer we become. So when you say give, it's not about just giving money. When you say wealth, wealth is not just money. Wealth could be knowledge, wealth could be food, wealth could be compassion, love. Wealth could be in any other form of a positive thought that we can share with others. All of them are wealth. The goddess of wealth is Lakshmi in Sanatana Dharma, the Indian tradition. And there are Ashta Lakshmis. There are 8 forms of Lakshmi. There is Vidya Lakshmi, Santana Lakshmi, Dhanya Lakshmi, Dhana Lakshmi. Dhana Lakshmi, money and wealth. Dhanya Lakshmi, food, grains and wealth. Vidya Lakshmi, knowledge and wealth. There is Santana Lakshmi, children and wealth. When you say children, wealth, giving wealth as a child, or Santana Lakshmi, how do you give child? If you literally translate that, you could always be a child to someone who has a void in their life, someone who is missing a sibling, one who is missing a child, one who is missing a mentor. We could always fill in that void. That itself is a great donation that we are making, a contribution that we are making towards someone's life or void in someone's life. When we give food, the happiness, the satisfaction that people have, like Mother's Kitchen that we do, the soup kitchens that we run, all of them are forms of contribution, giving. And there is a phrase in Sanskrit which says, knowledge, the wealth of knowledge is the biggest of all, because the more and more we give, the more and more we get, the more and more we accumulate. The more you give knowledge, the more you accumulate. I always feel that when we do the scriptural discussion, the points that I prepare, I feel the more I prepare it for sharing it with others, the more I learn every time. Sometimes I discuss the same point or topic somewhere, and each time I do that, I learn more and more. So the more I am giving, more I am accumulating. Same thing with love and compassion. The more we give, the more we accumulate. Amma is the best example. Simplest of gestures, to embrace people, to just share a smile and few words with them, positive words with people, that has catalyzed this whole network of giving, giving and giving. The whole network of embracing the world charities around the world, where there are tens of thousands of people, volunteers involved in benefiting millions around the world who are in need. Simplest of gestures, the more we give, all of us feel so much more satisfied the more we give. So the beauty of giving, love and compassion, giving knowledge, is such that when we give, we gain all the more. So, to give, try to give unconditionally, try to give without hesitation is also a form of sadhana, is also a form of spiritual practice. When we talk about giving, a beautiful example is that of a person from Europe. I hope I get the geography right. From Europe, who always enjoyed giving to others, little gifts that he could give to others, especially to children. And once he learns about 3 girls in a family living close by, wherein the father had to give the 3 girls away into slavery because he owed money to someone. And giving 3 little girls to slavery sounded very harsh to this being. And he decided, I am going to do something and not let the girls be given into slavery. And the legend goes that he gave whatever he had, including his place of dwelling. He could give all of them away to pay the debt of the father and save the girls from going into slavery, little 3 girls from going into slavery. And that inspired so many around that everyone started contributing. And that developed into a world phenomenon right now. The month of December is where we celebrate this great being, the great being who goes with the name of Saint Nicholas. And that becomes Santa Claus, right? Santa Claus, the whole of month of December is what? The month of giving. The little gesture that he did, a big sacrifice that he made, which inspired so many others, now is inspiring millions, billions around the world to give a gift, give to express your love. The power of giving is such that it can create so much happiness, especially in the northern hemisphere during December is a very gloomy time. Even mentally, it is kind of pulling us down. And this gesture of giving brings so much light in our lives, right? So thanks to Saint Nicholas to have spearheaded this practice of giving. And there are so many other inspiring such beings who have set an example to give unconditionally. So the strength, the power of giving is such, and it brings so much happiness in our lives, in others' lives. So the 4th form of spiritual practice, to give without hesitation, to give unconditionally, like Santa Claus, Saint Nicholas. So I don't know how true this legend is, but I hope it is true because it is as inspiring. So once again, summarizing the points: chant and imbibe the teachings of 1,000 names and Gita. 2, ever remain focused on the divine or feel the divine in everything that we do, everyone that we deal with. 3, direct our mind wherever we are, at least keep the mind in a positive thought, in positive company. And 4th, give as much as we can to the best of our ability, without any inhibitions, without any hesitation. Wholeheartedly share. When you say give, it's all about sharing. Share as much as we can. All these are part of Bahiranga Sadhana, outward spiritual practice. In one of the eventual verses, we'll discuss about Antaranga Sadhana, inward spiritual practices. So we'll conclude the discussion on the 27th verse here. It is 8:30. I guess we will not have time to chant all the verses. Rather, I would just want to spend a few minutes in reading out some of the submissions. There are 6 of the submissions for the assignment on what does it mean when you say, see the Supreme in everyone, or feel the Supreme in everything. Feel the Supreme, see the Supreme everywhere and all. So I got 6 responses. Most of them are short, so I'll just read them through. In case you need to leave, please feel free to do so, and feel free to stay back if you would want to hear others' thoughts on the topic. See the divine in everything, feel the divine in all. So the first submission, I keep it anonymous just so that to keep it plain and simple. So the first submission, I'll just read it out. It's still hard for me to see that oneness, especially in company that is unpleasant to the mind. Practically, in those situations, I try to see the good in that person and concentrate only on the divine through the good qualities that are expressed. For nature, it is a lot easier to feel the divine, and spending time in nature allows me to naturally pun intended there for naturally, clean up my mind so that there are less reactions, and in people based on interactions more focused on the good in everyone. Regarding physical objects, sometimes I lose my awareness of the divine in objects, and it leads to faster wear and tear. This is something I need to work on and would like to hear your advice, Ramanandamrita Chaitanya. So I don't want to make this a half an hour session. We'll discuss about it sometime when we are on this topic. So that's the first submission. The second one, to be divine is to be unseparated from existence and all its creations. It is a feeling of belonging and very much our natural state. Mind, ego, beliefs, and selfishness all serve to take us away from this state. I try to see the divine in a similar way as you explained the first option, qualities. That is, seeing everything in its natural state. Everything in God's creation is divine. We see divinity in the smallest details to the biggest phenomenon. Divine is in control of all things, absolutely, perfectly, wisely. God's goodness is played out continually and daily, both amidst and in the evil that thrives in this world. Struggles, hardships still occur in the world around us. Righteousness and praying in suffering times draw us closer to God. So that's the second one. The third one, immediately upon experience of the infinite, the knowing the oneness of all that is, that love and peace and joy is all there is, that this is just a play, that no one else's identity is real either, that there is no need for stress or pressure, just love in that state. That which can't be put in words, then you know the divine in all things, others included. Experiencing the infinite, the starry night sky, the vast blue sky of daylight, being on or in the ocean, contemplating spaciousness, the vastness of space, or anything that brings you personally back to oneness, knowing truth, darshan with Amma, remembering darshan with Amma, feeling love for all that is, it's all divine, is the third submission. The fourth one. Recently, we received the homework assignment based on a scriptural homework. Sounds to me very negative. It's not like a burden, but I hope it's not meant in that way. Based on a scriptural discussion by Brahmachari Ramanandamrita, there he described 3 ways of recognizing divine in everyone. 1, qualities such as calmness and focus. 2, a force underlying all of creation. And 3, all of creation is composed of the same atomic and subatomic particles. The assignment is to give other examples of ways to recognizing the divine in everyone. Another way of recognizing the divine in everyone is through focusing on one's breath. Everyone breathes. That is, the breath is the common function in everyone and everything. Focusing on the breath takes one inward. It leads to the awakening to one's true self or divinity. This is available to each one. Thus, as one awakens to the divine within, she knows each one is divine. Yet another perspective. Good one. The fifth submission. It is about someone who had an experience while swimming, I guess. It says, I would like to share how I became aware of shared consciousness. Oh, I think we got the wrong slide. Oh, I think it got messed up. So the next one is the fifth one. I would like to share how I became aware of shared consciousness. I was snorkeling in the turquoise waters of the Caribbean. I came across a school of angelfish. They all noticed me, but did not swim away. I looked at them and saw their curiosity about me. I saw how they were also a little timid and wanted to preserve themselves. They wanted to live just like me. And each individual fish was a little different. One more gentle, another skittish, one big, one small, one nibbling, unique body, but I recognized then that the consciousness that was in the angelfish was also in me. From all animals, I recognize a being within, one that wants respect and consideration. Of course, this could be expanded to include trees, rocks, mountains, etc. To me, this is the way to recognize the divine in everyone. Nice one, again, a nice experience. Thanks for sharing. The sixth one, I kept this, it's a slightly longer one. That's why I kept it as the last one. There are two questions or three questions that are answered here. How do we see our own self in everyone? In order to see myself in everyone, I need to understand what is that makes us the same. As Amma's child, I know what makes me the same as other human being is God, the divine, and in part the Atman, the self, the soul. The next question, how do we develop the attitude of the divine? In order to develop the attitude of the divine, I need to understand the difference between the unmanifest divine versus the manifested Maya. Knowing the difference between the divine versus Maya helps separate the qualities and the characteristics of the two. This realization helps me know that everything I see with my physical eyes is an aspect of Maya, including human beings' physical form. Then I try to remember the qualities and characteristics of the divine, that which created everything I see with my physical eyes. By separating the divine from Maya, I recognize that everything I see with my physical eyes is the part of the divine's creation, and within everything I see with my physical eyes is the divine, which is not visible to the physical eyes, that source which can only be known through experience. When I recognize the human beings that are not their body and are all the aspect of the divine, I allow myself to become open to the idea that every human being is the part of the same source of the divine. Now I allow the possibility to change my attitude, remain composed, or embrace love that is already present. The third question that you are trying to answer, what are the ways to recognizing or seeing the divine in everyone? When I do not like another person, what they do, what they think, how they feel, etc., rather than automatically excluding negativity, I try to notice this. What separates us is the physical body, and what unites us is the non-dual, the divine, which each human being, divine within each human being. As Amma's children, I try to go a step further and acknowledge that it is not enough to only know the principles but that I am responsible for imbibing the qualities of the divine, most importantly, love. This is not easy, nor admittedly am I able to do it much of the time, but through knowledge, understanding, and willingness to be responsible for spiritual principles, my tendency to automatically react impulsively is transformed. Then, in difficult circumstances, I leave room to take a breath, think of a moment, and have the opportunity to respond according to the principles that partner me with the original source, the divine. So that's a very detailed explanation. Thank you for that. I think it would help a lot of people relate with that and help them probably practice the same. Probably many of you are already doing that. Anyway, let's conclude the session praying to the Almighty that every being in the creation be happy, content, and peaceful. Let us chant the Shanti Mantra 3 times together. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Harihi Om.